Hi everybody, I'm here today with AnnMarie Ireland from Teacher Breathing Space Ireland. AnnMarie, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're just looking to meet with some people in education, National Principals Forum, so we're creating a little slot within our little hub on our website called NPF Meets. So AnnMarie, would you like to tell people a bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. And first of all, Nóirín, thanks a million for having me today. I'm delighted to be involved with the NPF. So yeah, basically I'm a former primary school teacher. So I was teaching for 12 years. And about 9 years ago, I started as a professional development wellbeing facilitator in education centres and schools nationwide, working with teachers and school leaders in wellbeing. So that's quite a while ago. So I was working, teaching full-time and working part-time as a PD facilitator. And in about 4 years ago, I decided to go full-time with the facilitation. So I've been doing that. I'm also in my second year of research in the DCU Institute of Education. So hopefully going on to the PhD register in September. So just working in that whole area of teacher, not just well-being, but teacher self-awareness, self-actualization, and so on. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So I've been working with, I started working with pupils in my own classroom in terms of well-being, and then I did some training, and I was doing my own personal, I suppose, development as well along the way on that journey. But I have been involved with all the major stakeholders in the school community, really. So the teachers, school leaders, SNAs, parents, and so on, because it is a school community. Well-being isn't just for one or the other. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's very striking. Anyone that's heard you speak, it is the fact that you've been in the classroom, you've practiced a lot of this with children in your own classroom. And I think that definitely comes across in any of your workshops. So, as I said, you have a lot of experience in education. So if you could make one change to education in Ireland, what would that be, AnnMarie?
Well, I suppose the area that I'm in terms of well-being and so on, it would definitely be, and this might seem like pie in the sky because it's such a tall order, but I suppose for me, it would go back to the school community, and to have innate supports there. So supports that are rooted into the school community in terms of well-being, so that well-being is not an add-on. So that at the moment, it still feels like an add-on at times, even though there's been such huge progress in the last 8 or 9 years. But I would really love to see a child and adolescent psychotherapist in every school. I know people will just laugh at me when I say that, but really and truly, there needs to be a support for teachers and school leaders, literally a 24/7 support. I know, again, that might sound ridiculous, but a lot of things that I was talking about 10 years ago in terms of mindful practice coming into schools, that sounded ridiculous as well, and now that is coming in. So we do need to talk about the best case scenario in order, in maybe in 10 years time, to see that come in. So I would really, it's, we talk a lot about it being a child-centered curriculum, but we have to consider all the stakeholders within a school and how that school operates as a whole. And if we are, obviously I was teaching and I was working with pupils and their well-being was paramount, but in order for it to work, in order for all of that to work, the teacher and the school leaders and the SNA's well-being needs to be given as much, I suppose the value needs to be equal on both. So the pupils and the staff, and and I'm talking all staff. I've worked in schools where in staff sessions where the secretary comes in, where the cleaning staff come in, and it needs to be a whole school approach. So, in terms of your question, for it to be that there would be a child and adolescent psychotherapist in every school, then in every single school there would be a room or a space. I know we have sensory rooms for the SEN children, and they're wonderful, and even for the other children, but we need to have a space for teachers and school leaders, even for them to go for 2 or 3 minutes, that they go and have their break, and then they go in and they sit and they decompress, they reset. And the thing is that people think it might be a bit airy-fairy, and here comes AnnMarie with her candles and her incense and so on, but it's much more than that. We've 35 years or more of evidence-based research there on mindful practice and how it rewires our brain, how it calms the stress response, moving ourselves into the parasympathetic system so that we're in the relaxation response. And from that space, Nóirín, then we are responding as school leaders and as teachers. We're actually responding positively to the children, to each other. And then over time, you have this gorgeous, rooted, collaborative, positive culture that begins to build. And you might say, well, it's only a little space where the teacher sits in. How ridiculous is that? But it's not ridiculous. The science is there to back it up. And I've seen teachers change over years, because I suppose the teachers I work with in the education centres, we've come to know each other very well over 9 years. We meet each other all the time, and we have a bit of a trusted community there. And they will tell you that getting to know their breath and their feet better, getting to know their thoughts better, having 2 or 3 minutes of a decompression time of what I call the calm set point. So as a school leader, if I'm able to respond to the challenges from a calm set point, well, that's a very different day for everybody. So I think having the supports there for the children, having your psychologist or your psychotherapist in there, and also having a space for teachers as well, and having that support when teachers go home and school leaders go home, that they have that support online if they need it as well. So that you have trained counsellors there, or preferably it would be teachers who have been trained in well-being as well. So maybe it's something that teachers need to access online when they come home from school as well. So that would be a whole system that I would see is absolutely vital. It's not a luxury. It's not something that I would see as a luxurious item for a school. It's absolutely vital to the smooth running of a school.
So that would tie in with the role of, say, for example, supervision in terms of psychology or whatever, which I think is something that's very much lacking in our system, the ability to decompress and to, a lot of the information that we're dealing with is confidential. So, you need somewhere to go and offload that at times, within this, if you keep it, that it's in a professional space, then the information remains. So,
absolutely.
So AnnMarie, I'm just thinking back to a visit from our NEP psychologist who told me I need to put something in place for well-being by 2023, and I have to have a school self-evaluation document, and I need to get moving. And I'm thinking from a practical point of view of all the things that I would not be able to get in place because of the building or whatever. So supports would be needed. So I'm now going to make you the Minister for Education for a couple of minutes. So if I'm thinking it would tie in with what you just said, what 3 issues might keep you up at night, and what might you do to alleviate those burdens?
Yeah, the three issues that obviously well-being is number one. And in terms of, I'd be very concerned in particular about school leaders, and you've heard me speak at the different conferences about that, because I think the pressure is so huge. So that would be one thing that would definitely keep me up at night. I think it's about, I know what you're saying about a wellbeing program and the WSC and all those things, but what is happening is that it's being offloaded onto a school and onto a principal to actually implement those in a building that doesn't actually support that, So I think if I was minister, my top priority would be in terms of well-being, because I've seen the effect of it, the ripple effect into the school, for the children, for the parents, into the community, So that would be my number one priority. And it would be to actually have a connection with the school leader in terms of not handing something over like that, well, you have to have a wellbeing program set up. Well, where do I go for that? So that there would be a program within, your catchment area, within the education centres, provided for you in terms of training your teachers in wellbeing, setting up a wellbeing team in your school, all of those things, and then taking out the guidelines and actually having someone who's trained to go through the guidelines with you, because I know those wellbeing documents, and while they're wonderful, they are wonderful, it would be of benefit to have someone trained to come in and do a session and for the school to understand and to give a template for a plan and so on, so in terms of practical, to actually bring, I suppose, what's up here in the department, to just bring it down another step until you're actually in the school with the principal going, I know that you're the principal, but I'm going to actually show you this template that has worked. And there's been research done on this, and this is what this school found, and this is what this school found, and that it's really evidence-based and it works. And I know that takes a long time, but even if we knew that was in the system,
Yeah.
then you don't feel when you're told as a principal by the next psychologist you to have, or, you know, the Department of Education says you to have that done and WSE is coming and, you know.
I know.
So that the template is there and you can work from that and you feel supported. And then I suppose the second thing that would be in my mind that would keep me up at night would be class size. Having taught in a classroom, and one year I had 32 and in a classroom, and I was working in an affluent area. I wasn't working in a disadvantaged area. I found it incredibly difficult. It was one of the most difficult years I had, purely because I had guilt all the time, as many teachers do, that I'm not getting to everyone, that I'm not getting everything done, that I'm not able to do as much, and I'm more stressed. The children are picking up on that because it's like a virus, we always say, whatever way the teacher is, the children are going to be. So class size. And then the third thing that came to my mind would be the lower paid teachers. So definitely the unequal pay, and that keeps me as a wellbeing facilitator and someone who thinks about teachers 24/7. I would be very concerned about that. I'd be very concerned about the roots that that's creating in terms of even if you're working in a gorgeous staff, and even if you're a lower paid teacher and you know that you're losing that amount of money over your career, and you're working with someone else, even if you're the loveliest person in the world, it'd be very hard to not have resentment, and you're breaking the connections with people when that happens, and that worries me a lot. So they would be the three priorities. Obviously there's loads more. There's SEN, that concerns me as well, but yeah, they would be my main three.
I think everybody feels for lower paid teachers, you know, it is quite difficult because, you know, it's not balanced, it's not fair. And I think fairness is at the core of everything we do, so that makes it very tricky.
Yeah.
So AnnMarie, there's a lot going on at the moment, you know, in terms of government formation, and thankfully we have a government now, so hopefully we can move on things a little bit. But as you see it now today, June 2020, what do you regard to be the most pressing matter in primary education?
I would say at the moment, you know, safety and well-being are unfortunately at the fore in a way that they never have been before. It concerns me hugely. The document that came out on Friday concerns me hugely. I know that they'll say they can't predict the next couple of months, you know, and I understand that. I do understand that. And I'm not one to kind of stand on the soapbox and be anti anything. I always remember that quote from Mother Teresa where she said that she would never go to an anti-war rally, but she will go to a pro-peace protest or rally. So I'd be very much of that ilk, that I would consider myself, what can we do, or, you know, how can we move forward, rather than saying this is wrong and that's wrong and so on. But I do think that when we look at it as a whole now, and the way we're looking at July and August, they'll absolutely fly by. We really need to know now, you know, we know enough now for even some of the supports to be put in place and some of the practicalities to be put in place. For me, I look at the next 14 months. I was already, before any of this happened, so concerned about school leader wellbeing and teacher wellbeing. And I'm not leaving out the pupils. Is that okay? I never am, but I have an absolute faith in teachers and school leaders. Like, I've worked with them for 9 years. I worked in a school. You know, I've absolute faith in teachers and school leaders of the country. I think if we are well as teachers and school leaders, the children will be absolutely fine. There's no problem, you know. But I do think that in reading the document, what concerned me was the emphasis on the student well-being and the pupil well-being. That's lovely, that's brilliant, we have to organise that. But in terms of, there should be an equal amount of support now given to the school leader and teacher well-being as well. And when I say well-being, I'm repeating that word. What I mean is, you know, providing a space that is secure, that is safe for us to teach in, that is, you know, going to be a space where we feel confident in how we're teaching, so that we have some idea where it's going to go. Are we going to be in all week? Are the teachers going to be teaching 2 days a week? Are they going to be in for the full week? So I think those, Nóirín, are the most pressing matters right now. If you ask me that in 6 months' time again, it could be different. But right now, I think safety, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and that triangle, you know, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that triangle, but at the bottom of it, obviously, is our physiological needs, our food, our shelter, and so on. And then moving up, you can see safety and security. And are the teachers and school leaders going to feel safe and secure? Are the children going to feel safe and secure? And then moving up, then we have that sense of connection and belonging, love and belonging. Are we going to be creating environments where we are going to feel that we're cared for? And not to be dramatic about it, but we don't know what the impact of this is going to be. We won't know for about, I would say, 2 or 3 years. We're not going to know. I would suggest a longitudinal study for children that we would be able to map and track exactly what the impact of this has been. Because I know myself I was a very anxious child, very shy child. I know you might think that now. I talk for a living, but I was, and I worried so much about the panda bears, the rainforests, the ozone layer. This is what kept me awake at night. So I always related to those children. So these children have now lived through a global threat, a global pandemic. This is going to be part of their makeup. We have to be able to match that. And that is trauma to a point. It is. And we're going to be dealing with that. And teachers, we need to make sure that as school leaders and teachers that we're equipped for that, that we have the skill set for that we know what to do, you know. So I think that's, for me, the most pressing matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, you spoke about the panda bears and the ozone layer. I suppose there was a sense when we were children that it was kind of, look, come on, like, you know, that's not an immediate threat to you in your world. And I think that's the big difference for children now, is that people have had to be straight with children and say, look, this could affect you. You do need to take responsibility. Have to say they're rising to it brilliantly, though, across the country. They really are. And I think there's just such pride from the educators, you know, watching and hearing about our children in schools.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, given the time that we're in, AnnMarie, can you think of any unexpected positives that you might have come across during these uncertain times?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when the lockdown first hit, there was an influx of absolute stress from teachers to me, and I was trying to keep up with it. I was trying to keep up with them. I felt, I suppose, a moral obligation or moral duty in my role to be there for them, and it was actually quite overwhelming. But as the weeks went on, I found that I was doing breathing spaces online, and you know, we'd have a massive group, maybe 50 teachers online or whatever, and I noticed that they were a lot more open, and they were a lot more open to being grateful, and a lot more open to being mindful, and a lot more open to being hopeful, actually. And I thought that was really heartening for me, because I felt, gosh, this is like, sometimes in the workshops, the teachers have come to me for years. They'll be quite open because they trust the environment they're in. They know what's coming. And with the retreat weekends that I run, we'd have a very open kind of a space where there's a lot of open narrative, and we talk about vulnerability, and we talk about those type of things. But in a space like that, a breathing space online, where I didn't necessarily know all the teachers, I was actually quite surprised at how far I could go with them. I think the pandemic, actually, the lockdown, actually, I know many people have said this, but it's opened us up to gratitude a lot more. It's opened us up to the good things and the little things and all the things I've been talking about for 10 years, that people were suddenly saying, oh, this makes sense, because of their experience. And I think, you know, for me, I was heartened by, we were doing like a heart meditation. I wouldn't really push it that far. And I could see them all putting their hand on their heart and actually connecting into themselves a lot more. So whilst it's just this funny irony, isn't it, or this paradox, because it's this global pandemic that's such a threat, and it's caused all this uncertainty and stress, but at the same time, it's actually opened teachers and school leaders up a lot more. And I think that can be of huge benefit when it comes to connecting with the pupils in the classroom. I think that as a teacher, and the research, you know, that I'm doing at the moment certainly reflects the fact that most teachers, their purpose is to make a difference. You know, if you look at some of the literature, even in Irish studies, you know, we're saying, right, well, why did you get into teaching? I love children, I want to make a difference. And I think being able to connect with pupils gives us such a sense of purpose as teachers and school leaders, because that's what it's all about. but it's been lost under the rubble of the paperwork and the policies, the initiatives, and all those things we worry about. And I'm not saying those things aren't important. They are important. We all need to be held accountable, and we all need to be professional in our work. But I do think that the connection was lost a little bit. And even, you know, my own husband is a 5th class teacher, and he's been Zooming twice a week with his class, and they've actually become this little community online, you know, and I think that's really hopeful, and I think that's a good sign for us as teachers and school leaders.
Definitely. Now I'm going to throw the cat among the pigeons here, because I know anecdotally from a lot of school leaders, this time would have been a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people, and they would have realized what they were missing with their children, with their families. How tired they were would have become very apparent. And I know that we've been extremely pushed within, you know, this time and trying to, you know, oversee and manage school leading and learning. But I think there will be some sense of fear that things will just pick up again and that we'll take up where we left off. Have you any advice for those people today?
For the school leaders themselves?
Yes.
And this is the tricky one, Nóirín. This is the tricky one. So in the past, and you know, and I've met you there at the conferences where I'm working with school leaders directly, like there would always be a school leader in the room when I'm doing workshops. It's just the way it would work. But when I'm speaking with school leaders directly, specifically, we all know the taglines that I will throw at them. Self-care, take 2 minutes, pause, breathe, all of these things that I will say. But will the school leader actually do them? And I think there's 2 parts to this really for the school leader now. I suppose it needs to be a wake-up call. I know that it has pushed school leaders to their absolute limit, and they are so afraid, because it's not just now the education of the children and the welfare of the staff, all those things that are normally on their shoulders. They now have a massive safety issue on their shoulders. That is terrifying. And I think it needs to be acknowledged by them that this is terrifying. And I think in narratives and conversations that are being had amongst school leaders and with each other on the Zoom or on the phone, if you have, you know, friends who are school leaders, that there needs to be a conversation. I'm terrified. This is really worrying me, because when we bottle it all up, you know what happens. It's going to spill out into another area of your life, and probably it'll be your family that will suffer, and that you will suffer. It is, you know, over the years, and this is minus a global pandemic, I have witnessed school leaders who have broken limbs because they're running down a corridor to an event. I have met with school leaders at conferences. One school leader who said to me, I think I'm going to be dead in 5 years. And he was totally serious. This man was only in his 50s. I met a school leader at a conference who told me that he almost died. His family begged him, and the doctors begged him to listen. And he went back into school during the summer. Luckily, he survived it, but it was the second time around he got such a fright, and he completely changed his attitude, changed his school. He changed the school into a mindful school after it because he got such a fright. And I also met a school leader who was so stressed herself, but her sister was a school leader who had been warned that she was so stressed and to slow down, and she didn't heed the warning, and unfortunately she fell and hit her head in school, and she is now in 24/7 care. So these are just examples. These are only examples of what I've experienced. And Nóirín, you know the stories as well. So it's not just a story though. That's a person with a life and a family, and it's devastating, and a school and school community. So what I would say to principals is to really try and take stock now, that whilst you have this on your shoulders, you know, if you're in a school that has your deputy principal, your middle management, that to have those meetings, to delegate, to make sure that you are leaning on whatever supports you can find within your school, board of management, parents association, bring everyone together. Don't carry it on your own shoulders, because you can't, because it's too big. It's too big this time, okay? And apart from delegation, I know that I'm going to say the pause and breathe, but Nóirín, like I mentioned at the beginning of our chat, like it is absolutely essential. We have the science behind this now. School leaders at the moment, in the last 3 months, never mind, you know, the normal school life, but in the last 3 months, their amygdalas inside their brains are swollen and overactive, and causing absolute chaos and mayhem in the body. You're probably feeling this yourself. You're exhausted, cranky, drained, overwhelmed, and you haven't even faced back into school yet. So there must be a space created, not just maybe a week or two over the summer, and that must be created. I know you'll think, oh, that's impossible, but it has to be. It's an investment into the school leader, and the school leader is needed by everybody. So it's not a luxury week. It's an absolute vital week that they need to take over the summer. I know if they're able to take a week and a half or 10 days or 2 weeks even. But from there, they also need to have that at least 2 or 3 minutes a day where there is that decompressing, where the amygdala is given a proper chance to just deactivate, pause, breathe your feet. Even if it's with your cup of coffee, just breathe in gently and breathe out slowly 3 or 4 times. That will over time start to deactivate, and you'll be working from a different space. Some principals will be cool as cucumbers because it's just their personality, because some people are they just respond even in a global pandemic situation. But for most people, it is going to be very stressful. So that's what I would say to school leaders. And the thing is, I would love to hear that said from above, because me saying it as AnnMarie Ireland from Breathing Space Ireland, they'll go, oh, that's really nice, but I don't have time for that. Whereas if it's recommended or it's said from above, and it's said, we recommend that once a day, this is what you do. We recommend that you delegate. We recommend that you take time now. Then principals would actually follow it. Does that make sense?
No, it does, absolutely. And it's that leadership that is so desperately needed right now. It really is.
Yes.
And I think that people need to be, if you're the type of person that goes in over the summer and gets X, Y, and Z done, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, fine. I think people really, really, really need to stop now and take a breath. And, what I worry about is announcements being made long into the summer. I personally intend to step back, and I'll deal with it when I've had my break, when I've had my time. Everything is doable in whatever time frame. So it's so vitally important. Yeah. So thank you for that, AnnMarie. So now I'm going to ask you a couple of really tricky questions. What was the last thing you watched on television, and why did you choose it, AnnMarie?
Totally off topic. So yeah, I actually haven't watched television today or yesterday. Normally Sundays I try to kind of just focus on, the shopping and we cook a dinner and have a roast dinner, and we try to kind of be mindful throughout the day and try and rest as best as possible to fill that well. But yeah, on Saturday night I was looking there was nothing really on, and I kind of was looking through Netflix, and I spotted A Winter's Tale. So I popped that on, and because years ago I read the novel, and I was, kind of vaguely interested in looking at it. And it was all about the universe, funnily enough, and how we all have a purpose in the universe. I was because I actually couldn't really remember what it was about. And when I started listening to it, it was wonderful. It was all this message about us all having a divine purpose, and that we all have this light inside us that we can give to others. And I said to my husband, I said, oh my God, this is so relevant. How did I magically pick this out of the air? So that was the last thing I watched.
Tailor-made for you.
Absolutely.
And okay, homework or no homework for pupils? Where do you stand on the Great Divide?
The Great Divide, oh God. I suppose I'm a teacher, not a parent, but I definitely am somewhere in between. I'm not anti-homework. I think that with the homework wise, I think it needs to be a nice balance. I think the reason that I advocated homework when I was teaching was because I was thinking of the practice that children were engaged in when they went home, that they went home and they actually engaged in a practice where there was discipline, where they have, where they did not repeated the work as such, but that they went back over something they had learned that day, and that they actually had that practice of sitting down and doing work independently. Hopefully it was independent. I saw the benefit in that, because I wouldn't like to see primary school children having no homework to do at home completely, and then when they go into post-primary that they don't have any, that their brain is not wired for it. That would worry me, because I've studied behavior and studied all those things with the brain, and it would worry me. But I do think that excessive homework, I'm absolutely wouldn't be on for that at all. I always tried to make sure that there was a balance of what they'd learned that day, it was repeated, and it was a good practice for them. So okay. I suppose that's where I stand.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And so from your own personal viewpoint, it's not to do with any particular facet of your life, what inspires AnnMarie Ireland?
100%, and this is not me saying it for the sake of saying it, teachers, 100%. I am absolutely blown away by teachers. I miss teachers so much. I know I get to see them online, but I miss connecting with them. School leaders and teachers absolutely blow my mind every time I do a workshop, but in particular when I do the summer course or the retreat weekends. And we will have some discussion where we open it out and there'll be a narrative, and I might try out one tiny idea or maybe one little nugget, and there'll be 5 or 10 will come back to me of what you could do with this, and if the children, and what you could do with the children. You know what else you could do? And you know what else you could do with the children? You know what you could do? And it's all about the children. And it's all about, and this is what I'm seeing. So this is maybe what, it's a unique space where I get to see this. And I would love, Nóirín, to bring the Minister for Education and even some people from the department just to sit in the back for the 5 days, not to inspect or any of those things, but just to sit in the back and just hear what these amazing people, school leaders and teachers, have to say about, not just about education, but about life, about children, about how much they care about the children, and how much professionalism they have innately, and how dedicated they are and how committed they are, and how they would throw themselves under a bus for their school, the school leaders would. There was one summer course where a principal of a school, and we were doing an activity that I always do, which is looking at maybe mindful solutions to stressors and so on. And he just basically kind of made a Michael Collins-like speech about his school and how he would support his teachers to the nth degree and what he would do. And everybody, there was people crying. He got a round of applause. It was so moving. And every single year, because when I did it the first year, I did my summer course the first year, I kind of thought, oh, this is unique. We've all bonded, and everything has been so inspiring, and it's been amazing. And on the Friday, people were laughing and crying and laughing and crying at the same time. And the admin in the education centre came in and said, what are you doing in here? But it's not about me. It's not about me. I'm just literally creating a space where teachers empower and school leaders empower themselves. I don't empower anybody because I don't have that power. I don't claim to have it. I'm not trying to save anybody, but it's just a space to be, to rest. And then you see these shining lights coming forth, and that's what inspires me the most. Yeah. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about this work, because I've seen it over and over and over again where teachers, and then they come back to me and they say, this is a letter from a parent this year was so different for me, AnnMarie, and this is the letter. And within the education centre, then we would come back and do evening courses or the retreat weekends, so they have that bit of support. So it needs to be systemic, Nóirín. Like, it needs to be. It's not about a well-being program that's just implemented and we all do a bit of breathing and and we tell the teachers to go and do some yoga. It's about valuing the teachers and school leaders and understanding and sitting in that room where I sit and going, oh my God, these people are amazing. And these are the people who are with our children. These are the people who sit and stand with our children every single day. So surely we need to put the value on our school leaders and our teachers. That's just what inspires me.
Well, I'd argue with you that you do have the power because you're the person who creates the space. You do, and it is so appreciated by so many. And just think of the ripple effect of what you're doing to each school, to each teacher, to every child. It's massive, AnnMarie, and hats off to you. Well done. Just wondering, is there anything else you want to add, AnnMarie?
I suppose, well, first of all, thank you, and thank the NPF for all they do. I think you're an inspiring group, and I love how you just have your voice out there and you say what needs to be said. So you guys inspire me as well. But also just, I suppose, to bring it back to the primary principals and to really to the core of the NPF and to all primary principals and teaching principals and so on, and deputy principals, all school leaders, that, to try your best. as you said, Nóirín, there, you know, I was thinking about when you said there about you're going to take that time personally. I think that that is leadership. I think that if you send an email or you have a Zoom staff meeting with your staff and you say, look, I'm taking this time. When the school leader, and I was a teacher myself, so whatever's modeled by the school leader is going to give me permission as well. So you're given permission to your staff to say, well, I'm going to take those couple of weeks as well. As professionals, we know that we are not going to drop the ball over those 2 weeks. We're not abandoning the school. You're not abandoning parents. You're not abandoning anybody. But you need to actually take the 2 weeks where the phone is actually off, where the email is actually, there's an out of office. You might state a day, maybe 3 or 4 days in, where you can check in on it, just to make sure, check in on media to make sure if there's any announcements and so on. But there really needs to be mentally a switch off, at least for a week, for principals. And your staff will thank you for it, because they'll follow suit, and then they'll take a break. And then it's amazing when you come back from a rest and you actually, your eyes are open, you go, oh my God, this isn't, I know it is huge, but I actually maybe can find solutions. I always use the image of the storm waves and the calm water. So the mind is like water. So it's either stormy, and at the moment for principals, it is so stormy. It's just stormy night and day, and your family are suffering and you're suffering and so on. But when you're able to decompress, access that inner breathing space, have some calm for yourself, for your family, connect with your family, cook a meal, sit with your family and have a meal, have a glass of wine, whatever it is you need to do for those few days. And what will happen is the mind will start to go into the calmer waters, and all the solutions and answers will actually be able to float up and emerge if they're there, rather than you trying and pushing, get more angry about the, you know, getting more angry about there not being an announcement and more frustrated and so on. Whatever announcement comes, you will be able to handle it better if, whether it's clear, it's unclear, if the waters are calmer in the mind, if the body is calmer, the amygdala is deactivated, and you're in the relaxation response a bit more rather than the stress response all the time. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
that's with principals with that
definitely.
much.
AnnMarie, can I just finish off by saying I want to wish you the very best of luck with your research and your studies. And I just want to, on behalf of all of NPF, thank you so much. You've taken your chances with us over the times, and you've had faith in us, which is the biggest thing. And you've reaffirmed us, and you've made us feel like, yeah, hang on now, we're not imagining this. It's not us, it's the system, and it's something that we can do something about. So your work gives us great hope and sustenance. I have my little, look at my dot on my phone.
Brilliant, Nóirín, brilliant.
Because that's always there to hand. So I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you for doing the interview. It was really lovely chatting to you.
It was absolute pleasure. Thanks so much, Nóirín. And go gently, go lightly, and go safely, just to everyone in education at the moment, and take care of each other. That's the most important point as well, just to take care of one another.
Thank you. So from AnnMarie Ireland of Teaching Breathing Space Ireland and myself, Nóirín, thank you.